Hi everyone, my name is Dan Strutzel and I'm Vice President of Publishing here at Nightingale Conant. And it's my honor today to be with our new Nightingale Conant author, Mark Erlix. And Mark is the author of a new program from Nightingale Conant I know you're going to want to find out more about and try for yourself, called Awaken the Healer Within.
Yes.
Mark, it's great to be with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. Mark has been coming by the NC offices for many, many years, and we said it's about time we do a program together because there's a lot you'll want to know from this man. He has inspired and he's helped many, many people. I wanted to start off, Mark, by just asking you about the title of the program itself. It's called Awaken the Healer Within.
Yes.
I think when a lot of people think about healing, they think, I have a problem, I go to a doctor, some external force to get healed, and yet you're suggesting healing comes from within. Can you tell us more about the title of the program and how that fits in to the program itself?
Yes. Awaken the Healer Within is a program that enables a person to understand within themselves that they have this innate ability within themselves that we haven't been able to tap into. And it used to be a part of humanity at one time, and we have this source within us that's alive and well and just wanting to give itself to us and through us. And it does come forth where we have the ability to touch someone to help them to feel better. And even through our words, it's just an innate part of us.
Right.
And I can help people to realize, I help the individual to realize that they too can do this. The individual that listens to the program, the audio program, they'll find out that it's so easy and it's available to them. And the listener will actually take tools from this that given in the audio program. They'll feel an actual difference. They'll feel the tissue moving. They'll feel the bones being shifted in some way or another, according to their ability to focus. And this program teaches you to focus. You'll actually see result not only for the physiological, biological, neurological, but the emotional as well. And it helps a person to take on a different understanding of themselves.
So how could I take an idea like this? This is the idea of touch, for example.
Yes.
I could do this on a physical level.
Yes.
Let's say that I or someone I love is having a real emotional problem. They're extremely depressed.
Yes.
They're extremely anxious. Can you use that technique of touch to help restore emotional health?
I teach in the program how we can literally step outside of ourselves, and it's a real easy tool, and we become objective. And it's through the objectivity that we get to experience the spirituality. That's how we see it in the world today, through the peripheral of our life. And I teach technique on how to do that. And it helps a person that you're talking with or having an interaction with to take a look at themselves, to calm down, to have a reality check within themselves. They actually are forced to do that to some respect. And they no longer find, for that moment, the conflict. And it gives them a break in their life, which is really tremendous. And they're in this objective mode, and they're able to take a look at themselves, they're able to catch themselves, they're able to stop themselves from what they're going through in that moment. And they no longer, for some reason or another, they'll no longer actually experience that depression for that moment. And then you can even remind them, hey, look, you're feeling better now. And they'll stop themselves, they'll say, yes, I am inside. And it'll be odd for them.
Right.
And it's like a reality check where we're catching ourselves and we're no longer in that depression or that subdued mode where we're going through a dilemma in our mind. It's out of the mind.
Right.
And
interesting.
Through these techniques. These techniques are amazing, just totally amazing. They're wonderful for people. And it helps them to also want to become a part of that in their life for that moment.
So it seems like what you're saying, Mark, with that technique, it's almost like people, if they're depressed or anxious, they're kind of, at the base level, they're kind of just focused on their own immediate self, their own immediate situation, but if they can kind of go to a much bigger picture,
yes,
almost like a 50,000-foot view versus their immediate, and kind of live from that place, they kind of become their own observer in a way,
yes,
and see that this
and
drama
then,
that they're playing
yes,
out?
exactly, exactly. And they're taught techniques on how they don't have to necessarily take on the dilemmas of the dramas and traumas of life, how they really don't exist, and they get thrown back into their reality of the way they were born to be in their life.
Right.
More of a perfection. And they find this so easy. And there's nothing you have to study, nothing you have to participate in. You're taking out of the picture where you're participating in a greater world within yourself, a greater consciousness, a greater understanding, a more of a healthy, holistic understanding within themselves.
So let me take a condition to see how a holistic healer would deal with something versus typical approach. Let's say someone has a problem. I'll just mention something I've had a problem with for years, which is acid reflux. I've had a huge problem with that, and GERD. And the typical response from a doctor would be to have you take a proton pump inhibitor type pill, or some kind of a pill that would wipe out the acid in your system, and it's kind of localized. How would a holistic healer deal with a problem, whether it be acid reflux, stomach aches, or localized pain problems like that?
You know, I'm not exactly sure of the medical model and the prescriptions and all that the doctors might give. And I do know, though, that many a time I've worked with people that have had similar situations in their life. And I can put my hands, and I teach people to put their hand on someone if you choose this technique. There's various things where you don't even have to touch. And say, if I were to put my hand on someone, because that's the way people identify. They want to see that something is happening in them, so they want the identification that someone is doing something, and which are the techniques. When someone is, say, with the GERD or whatever, I'll put my hand on someone, and in these techniques, and I'll watch their tissue change, and I teach people to be able to watch the tissue of their body change, and the biology and the chemical reactions in their body and the skeletal whatever. And they'll actually feel a change within them, or they'll have a relief within them. The tissue will breathe. It'll be more normalized within them. And all of a sudden it's disappeared in their life. And they're totally surprised. I'm totally surprised, but I say, oh yeah, it happens all the time. And, but it's a normal reaction for the body to have that relief within them. Right. And they won't have it again most of the time. Or they'll have it again, and you can reapply it sometime, and say later that day or the next day or a couple weeks later, whenever it starts to bother them again. And they find that you have to do it less and less and further in between times where they're no longer reacting. Their body is no longer reacting to the dysfunction. Right. And the dysfunction actually disappears out of their body. And these techniques are amazing. They work.
It's interesting, Mark. So, a breakthrough for me in this interview is that, and you're talking about the consciousness, in a sense, in someone's stomach and body. A lot of people think of consciousness just being in their head or in their brain.
I understand.
But the whole body is infused with consciousness, and to me that's a real breakthrough. If, in addition to that breakthrough, are there any other areas that you think are big misconceptions out there about healing, the topic of healing, what it takes to heal, kind of myths that exist in our culture that you break open in this program?
It's an interesting question, and I think that the main thing, well, let me give you a short story. There was a woman that came to me one time from another country, and she had been to the best neurologists in the world, had tried every type of medication that was prescribed to her for years and years and years, and she was about 60 years old at the time, this young lady, and she had been on her last rope in life. She's had these massive migraines for about 55 years. And she heard about me, she came along, and she said, okay, how can I get rid of these migraines? Can you help me, please? I've just about had it, and I'm suffering most of my life. And I said, well, let's give it a try. And so I had her stand there, and I started, in one of the techniques I teach, scanning, where you can feel the body's energies, the morphic fields coming forth And the morphic fields are fields of information. So I started with her head and I worked down. I didn't find anything until I got to her left calf muscle. Mm-hmm. And then I said, what is this? You know, I felt this tremendous energy emanating forth from her, which was the indicator of where it all originated from. And so I'm standing there, kneeling down on her left calf muscle, and all of a sudden I had this vision in my head, which I teach people how to perceive of that vision through the intuitive. Mm-hmm. And I listened to it, I watched it, I saw the images, and I saw the scene of where it originally originated from. And here she is as a 5-year-old little girl, and she was on this 3rd floor balcony, and she was being called by her friends down into the alley area. And I'm watching this in my mind, and her mother's yelling at her, don't tear your new dress when you go and play, and not playing too hard. And so she kept that in mind for a moment or two. She ran down. Her girlfriend's calling her at the end of the alley, come here, quick, run, run. And as she was running, there was another fellow on one side of the alley, another fellow on the other side of the alley, and they pulled a rope. She tripped. She tore her dress. She hit her head, and she came back up, and her dress was torn. And she didn't want to tell her mother, thinking that she was never going to be able to play again. And so here I am telling her this story. I described her and what I saw through the intuitive, which means inner teaching, and in what I teach in the techniques of the program. And she kept this in herself. She never told her mother what had happened with those 2 boys, mm-hmm. and how they pulled the rope and she went down, hit her head, and how she tore her dress. And a brand new dress devastated her. And in a child, everything is much more expanded. Right. And so here she is. All these years later, she remembers this. She starts crying. She saw the event. She remembered the event in her mind. And the migraines went away for the first time in her life.
Wow.
And this is the techniques that I teach you how to utilize and how to function and to tap into, and how you're able to do this as easily as I do.
If you were to come up with one compelling reason why people should try this program for themselves, give it a try for themselves,
yes.
See how it works for them, what would it be?
That everyone has the innate ability within them to go forth and to serve and to tap into this greater consciousness that we carry inside. And it's waiting to come out 24/7. It wants to communicate with us, and it wants to share with us, and it wants to share with the world. And especially, you know, if we're close with someone, so many people take these courses that they don't want to go out and be a healer like I am. They just want to know how to tap into the source, how they can apply it in their lives, and how they can, if with their spouses, with their children. So many mothers, you know, would love to be able to work with the children where they wouldn't have to necessarily go to the doctor, where it's not so necessary, but they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Now they see that it's easily rectified, whatever the situation is, mm-hmm. in their life, in their child's life, or their husband's life, or their wife's life. And it's available. It's an innate ability that we carry within us.
Excellent. And for those who are skeptical, and
I
everything
love
we've been
skepticism.
talking about,
Love
that they're skeptical this energy exists and skeptical that you can manipulate, what would you say to that person?
I say give it a shot, and you might be quite surprised. And I've worked with and I've taught thousands and thousands of skeptics. Mm-hmm. But, you know, even if we're skeptical, I think that it's because we're afraid sometimes to acknowledge that there might be something a little bit more in life, and even the skeptic realizes that.
This has been great, Mark. I've learned a great deal in this interview, and I know we've just scratched the surface of what's in this program.
Thank you so much for having me.